Hello again. Next, we're going to talk about Brahms' Symphony No. 1. Now, Brahms is just an incredible composer. He has very complicated rhythms in his music, intricate harmonies, and just breathtaking melodies and counter melodies. And so, this excerpt, we want to make sure we again focus on playing with a beautiful sound. The next thing we want to do is to make sure that the timing is exactly right. So the same technique that we used for Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 5, we're wanting to do that with Brahms. So we're going to play the subdivisions just like this. And so I think a couple other points that help with that is that when we get that rhythm, dee, da, bum, we want to make sure that we're playing the 16th note subdivision so we can hear exactly where we need to place that 16th note. So it's perfectly in time. And the next thing I want you to focus on when you're playing with those subdivisions is making sure that the long notes, those dotted quarter notes, have some shape to them. So don't let them be passive, but have each one of those eighth notes show you where the phrasing is in addition to the timing. And so you can really map out how you're going to do the crescendos and the diminuendos. So you want to make sure that this melody has a beautiful long phrase to it, even though it looks almost like it's just jumped. Now definitely listen to the recording on this one because you start this solo, which is really a duet with the violin. And so you really have to make sure that you're playing a supportive role. There's no dynamic that's listed, but I would think playing with a really full mezzo forte sound and having a lot of phrasing up and down is going to be suit you really well. But there are some dynamics that Brahms does print. And so you want to make sure that we're getting those dynamic contrast, and it's in particular those subito dynamic changes. All right, so the example I'm talking about is going to be in the second system of the music where we have the double piano and then immediately that forte. So we want to show that dynamic contrast. Brahms is very much a romantic composer that was looking back towards the classical era and composers before him. So the fortes aren't really brassy, loud forte, but more of a warm, resonant forte. So don't go crazy with that dynamic, but maybe bring down that double piano and just show some of the contrast without getting too aggressive with the louder ends. So what you can do to practice that is just doing some long tones of crescendos and diminuendos on those two different notes, so the two octave Bs basically. Just sort of experiment with how you can control the dynamic. You can also use that same technique of playing the subdivision to help you play through that. And then I would keep expanding those dynamics so you feel like you have a lot of control over that dynamic range so that we can really highlight those two different dynamic shifts. The next thing I would like to talk about is dealing with the tuning of this particular excerpt. So with the transposition, it puts us playing in our B major, which is a really tricky key. One, we're not very familiar with it. We don't play a lot just for fun in B major. And it also uses what we have called a lot of cross fingerings or a lot of valves that are involved in the process. So the tricky part about the horn is that the more valves you add to a note, so if you're playing like a C sharp, thumb 2-3, or G sharp, it's going to be inherently sharp because you're adding a lot of valves. So this key is one, uncommon, and two, kind of out of tune. So we got to make sure that we're playing it as in tune as possible. So the nice thing about having both the transposed part and the non-transposed part on the same page is that you could go back and play in the original key, what it looks like to be the original key, but then don't transpose. So it would mean that you'd be playing in C major, and so it would really help to make sure that you're hearing the pitches exactly how they're supposed to be in relation to one another. and not having to deal with a complicated key. Now, when you play it in the excerpt for your audition, definitely play it in the key that Brahms intended of our B major or horn in E. But it's a good practice technique to take an excerpt and transpose it to multiple keys. So to help you play, once you figure out where all the notes go and where all of the intervals need to be placed to help you play it more in tune, I think playing with drones is something that is a huge practice tool and technique that I use on a daily basis. So I try to play with drones at least 10, 15 minutes every single day. And you can get them everywhere. So Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all of those are going to have free drones that you can play with. And so what I mean by drones is that it's just going to be a recording of a concert B or a concert E or a concert F sharp. And so what you would want to do is put that on and play through just the B major scale to make sure you're playing the scale really in tune. And then go ahead and play some excerpts of the music, and then pay close attention to some of the arpeggios that happen in measure 94 in particular. So here's an example of playing with some of the drones, and you can experiment with what drone key works best for a certain part of the music, and it will help you hear the intervals in a different way. So here are some examples. So this is a drone in concert E, so I'm going to start at the beginning of the excerpt. So it doesn't all quite fit, right? Some of the notes are easy to hear where the pitch goes, some aren't as easy, but you want to play the whole excerpt that way. And then once I go to the solo that happens in measure 100, that's where you want to maybe bring the dynamic level up a bit, because this is actually the solo. And this works really well with the drone in E. So here's going to be an example of a drone in F sharp. That was starting at the beginning, and you can hear that a lot of the notes don't quite fit, but right at the downbeat of E, that C sharp, our C sharp, concert F sharp, that was the one I really wanted to make sure I'm playing in tune. So by switching the keys of the drums, you can really learn a lot from the excerpt. So a few other points to maybe keep in mind as you're playing this excerpt. We want to be very expressive, especially in the beginning, but still in that supportive role. And then once we get to measure 100, and when you listen to the recording, you will hear this, that's where the horn takes over and you're the solo. So be as soloistic or even more expressive at the end of this piece. So the next thing you're going to be hearing is a performance of me playing the whole excerpt. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and I would be happy to answer them. Thanks.